In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Hey, Warrior Saints. Perhaps one of the greatest rivalries in baseball, for those of you that know baseball, is the Yankees and the Red Sox. In 2001, my buddies and I all had the opportunity to go to a Yankee-Red Sox series. So we went to not just one of the games, not two of the games, we went to all three games. I traveled from Pittsburgh, other guys came from Connecticut, people came from New York. It was a blast. And all of us were Red Sox fans, except for one. And he had no trouble walking into Fenway Park wearing a Yankees shirt. He was proud of his team. He was proud to root for the Yankees, because of course there's no accounting for taste. And he just went on, cheering every time the Yankees did anything great, which was a lot, because at that time the Yankees were really good and the Red Sox were really, really, really not good. People were throwing popcorn at him. People threw beer at him. The way that my friend was treated was horrendous. I was shocked that there was the ability for people to treat another human being this way solely based on which baseball team they liked. And then, of course, I apologized to him for throwing my beer at him, throwing all of my popcorn at him, and all of that. In this morning's epistle, St. Paul says, be watchful, stand firm in your faith, be courageous, and be strong. Let all that you do be done in love. My friend was firm in his love for the Yankees, and he went with courage, with boldness, walked into the Lions' Den itself, Fenway Park. And we weren't just in like the seats, we were in the bleachers, which is kind of where it gets a little bit rowdy. Tickets were $25 at that time. It was the affordable part of Fenway Park. And he went with this boldness, and he was unafraid to go and sit and watch his team that he believed in, his team that he followed, that he had, if we may dare say, faith. He acted with boldness based on this faith. I'm caused to ask the question, what is faith? What is it that is inside each and every one of us that causes us to have faith in something, that causes us to believe in something so much that we're willing to risk ridicule, we're willing to risk kind of being treated like dirt just because we have faith in something. Faith is personal. Faith needs to be based in something, needs to come from somewhere. Faith is something that Father Tom Hopko would say is not simply blind. Faith is something that is infused by actions, infused by moments in our life that build up that faith. And as we've all heard Father Chris say in the past, faith is a verb, it is an action. It is almost a muscle that needs to be trained, that needs to be worked out. The way that we do that, as St. Paul tells us today, is precisely through love. We live out that faith through love. Prior to today's passage from Corinthians, earlier in chapter 13, St. Paul says, and we've all heard this, love is patient, love is kind, love is not jealous or boastful, it is not arrogant or rude. Love does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrong, but rejoices in right. We love this passage about love. We love the passage about love. We want to hear it all the time. We put it on tapestries in our houses. We think, oh, it's so beautiful. Everyone is lovely. It's this like beautiful rom-com lived out in Corinthians. No! Love has nothing to do with that, as we hear the words of St. Paul. Love is not what we think it is. Love is crucifixional. by definition. Listen to what St. Paul says. Love is patient. If I am patient, it means I am not getting my own way. If I am patient, it means that I am humbling myself, calming myself down, and going for the needs of the other who is standing in front of me. Patience might be helping a child through a math problem that we can do in 3 seconds. I can't do that in 3 seconds. I can't do math. But that parents might be able to do very quickly. But they take the time to teach their child how to do it, not simply give them the answer. Love is kind. Kindness takes work. Kindness takes effort. Kindness is not easy. Love is not jealous. We humble ourselves when we are not jealous. We humble ourselves when we submit to the needs of another person, recognizing that we don't need to be afraid. We don't need to be afraid of other things. And love rejoices in what is right. Rejoicing in what is right doesn't simply mean, what you should have done is this. But it does mean being humble enough to say to our friends, in love, I don't like the path you're going down. I don't like the decisions that you're making. And I'm worried about you. And I want to help you get to a place that's better. This love that St. Paul speaks of is not relative. Speaking for what is right does not mean that everything is right. Because if everything is right, then nothing is right. Speaking in love does not simply mean saying to someone else, do whatever you need to, but coming to them and saying, I love you and I want what's best for you and I'm going to help you get there. Being willing to walk down that path with them. Just like any other muscle, this love, this faith, needs to be taught. Christ says in Matthew's 22nd chapter, the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. We quote this all the time. But where does this come from? This needs to be taught to one another. This needs to be taught to our children. And we hear that precisely in what Christ is quoting from Deuteronomy. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And these words which I command you shall be on your heart, and you shall teach them diligently to your children. How can we teach this love to our children? We start by bringing them here. Taking what we learn here in liturgy. We are taught in liturgy. We are taught how to love in liturgy. We hear the words of Christ in the gospel. We hear the words of St. Paul in the epistle. We hear the Troparia, which teach us about the lives of the saints who often faced tortures and were bold in their faith and were taught how to love God by their example. And then we are fed by God, and then we are sent out into the world to live that love for everyone, with everyone, showing everyone what it means to love one another, that with one mind we might confess Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, the Trinity, one in essence and undivided. That is, in a nutshell, everything that we're talking about. This is the love that is defined by St. Paul. And it is the mind that unites us when we say, with one mind we might confess. So how do we do it? How do we do this when we're out in the world? The first step is we need to be patient. Anyone that opens Facebook at any moment knows that there is a lot of impatience in the world. Everything needs to be instantaneous. We have videos that start before we even click on them. We have people that are arguing a point that they don't even know what they're arguing anymore, to the point where they're going in circles and they're all saying the same thing using different words and arguing over the exact words that they're using. When we start acting with patience that is based on this love, we start actually hearing what we say to one another and what the other person who is in front of us is actually saying, and we can have dialogue. The second is that we rejoice in what is right. We hear the commandments of God in all that we do. We are called to live out those commandments and to be a beacon of what those commandments teach. And that brings us to our third point. Be bold in your living out those commandments, but be bold with love. Let's rise and offer the gifts on behalf of the whole world.